The coffee at Miller's Diner tasted like burnt rubber, but Tom Brennan ordered it anyway. It was the only place open at 6 in the morning in his hometown of Riverside, and after 3 weeks of being back, he'd learned to avoid the crowds that came later. He sat in the corner booth, the same one his dad used to take him to after Little League games. Back then, people smiled at him. Now they just stared. The bell above the door chimed and 3 men walked in. Tom recognized them instantly. Rick Palmer, David Chen, and old Mr. Hendricks, all veterans. Rick served in Iraq. David did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Mr. Hendricks was Vietnam, though he rarely talked about it. They didn't see Tom at first. Or maybe they did and pretended not to. Either way, they settled into a booth across the room and their voices carried in the quiet morning air. "I'm just saying it's different now," Rick was saying, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Kids these days sign up for the benefits, not the service." "Not all of them," David replied. "Most are good soldiers. But yeah, some slip through who shouldn't be wearing the uniform." Tom kept his eyes on his coffee cup. He knew where this was going. It always went the same way. "Speaking of which," Mr. Hendricks said, his voice dropping just loud enough for Tom to hear, "You know the Brennan kid came back last month?" Tom's jaw tightened, "I heard," Rick said. "Saw him at the gas station. Couldn't even look me in the eye, would you?" David asked. "After what he did?" The waitress, Betty, who'd known Tom since he was 5 years old, walked past his table without asking if he needed a refill. She used to sneak him extra pancakes when his dad wasn't looking. "My cousin was there," Rick continued. "He said Brennan just took off. Left his guys pinned down. 3 men died while he ran for cover." Tom's hands gripped the coffee cup harder. His knuckles went white. "That's not soldiering," Mr. Hendricks said with disgust. "That's cowardice. Plain and simple." Tom stood up, placed a $10 bill on the table, and walked toward the door. He had to pass their booth. All 3 men stopped talking and watched him. Rick's eyes burned with something between anger and disappointment. David just shook his head. Mr. Hendricks looked away entirely. Tom pushed through the door and into the cold morning air. His truck was parked down the street, but he needed to walk, needed to breathe. This was his life now. Whispers, stares. The weight of a story that wasn't true but might as well have been carved in stone. Nobody asked him what happened. Nobody wanted to hear his side. They'd already decided. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his younger sister, Katie, the only person in this town who still talked to him like he was human. "Dad's asking if you're coming for dinner Sunday. I told him you would. Please come. Love you." Tom stared at the message. Sunday dinners used to be sacred in the Brennan house. His father, Robert Brennan, retired Army sergeant, would grill burgers and tell old war stories. Tom would laugh and dream about the day he'd have his own stories to share. Now his father could barely look at him. Last Sunday they'd sat across from each other for 40 minutes and Robert had spoken maybe 10 words. All of them were "pass the salt" or "how's the job hunt." There was no job hunt. Who would hire the coward of Riverside? Tom walked past Franklin Hardware, where he used to work summers in high school. Old man Franklin was sweeping the sidewalk. When he saw Tom, he turned and went back inside. The help wanted sign still hung in the window. It had been there for 2 months. Tom had applied. Never got a call back. By the time he reached his apartment, a 1-bedroom place above the dry cleaners, Tom felt hollowed out. This was the routine. Wake up, try to exist. Get reminded that the town had already written his story. Go home, repeat. He climbed the narrow stairs and unlocked his door. The apartment was bare. A couch he'd bought from Goodwill. A TV that barely worked. A mattress on the floor in the bedroom. He hadn't unpacked most of his boxes. Didn't seem like there was a point. Tom sat on the couch and stared at the wall. In Afghanistan, he'd operated with some of the most elite soldiers in the world. He'd run missions that would never see the light of day. He'd made decisions in seconds that saved lives. He'd been called Ghost by his team because he could move through enemy territory like smoke. Now he was just the guy who ran. The official story was simple. His unit engaged with enemy fighters in the mountains. The firefight lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, 3 men were dead and Tom was gone. He showed up 72 hours later at a forward operating base, wounded and silent. He refused to explain where he'd been. The Army processed him out quietly. Honorable discharge, technically. But the rumor mill had already started turning. His former brothers in arms couldn't talk. Everything was classified. The people who knew the truth were bound by oaths and security clearances, so the story that spread was the simple one, the wrong one, the one that made sense to people who weren't there. Tom had thought about leaving Riverside, starting over somewhere new, but something kept him here. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was hope that someday the truth would come out, or maybe it was just exhaustion. His phone rang, unknown number. Tom almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call about his car's extended warranty. But something made him pick up. Is this Tom Brennan? A woman's voice, professional, direct. Who's asking? My name is Jennifer Park. I'm an investigative journalist. I've been looking into your case for the past 4 months. Tom's heart started beating faster. I don't talk to reporters. I know you don't. I know you haven't talked to anyone. But Mr. Brennan, I think I know what really happened in those mountains. And I think I know why you can't defend yourself. Tom stood up, pacing his small living room. You don't know anything. I know about the caves. I know about the high-value target. I know about the order you received and the choice you had to make. Tom stopped pacing. His blood ran cold. How do you... I have sources. People who were there. People who are tired of watching you take the fall for something that wasn't your fault. Jennifer paused. Mr. Brennan, I can't make you talk to me, but I'm going to publish this story with or without your cooperation. I'd rather do it with you. I'd rather get it right. Tom sat back down on the couch. For 3 years, he'd carried this weight alone. For 3 years, he'd been the coward, the deserter, the man who ran. Part of him wanted to hang up right now, to keep the secret locked away where it belonged. But another part of him, the part that used to be ghost, the part that used to believe in truth and honor, was tired of hiding. I need to think about it, Tom said finally. I understand. I'm in town for the next week. Here's my number. She rattled it off. Call me when you're ready. Or don't. But Tom? The truth is coming out either way. You deserve to be part of telling it. The line went dead. Tom sat in his apartment as morning light crept through the window. For the first time in 3 years, something that felt like hope stirred in his chest. It was small, fragile, maybe foolish. But it was there. And maybe, just maybe, the truth was stronger than the lie that had nearly destroyed him. Tom didn't call Jennifer Park for 3 days. Instead, he spent those days doing what he'd been doing for weeks. Walking, thinking, trying to remember who he used to be before everything fell apart. He'd grown up in Riverside with one clear goal: be like his father. Robert Brennan was a legend in their small town, Army sergeant who served in Desert Storm, Bronze Star recipient, the kind of man who commanded respect just by walking into a room. Tom remembered being 8 years old, watching his dad in full dress uniform at a Memorial Day parade. The way people looked at him, the pride in his eyes. That's when Tom knew he wanted that. He wanted to serve. He wanted to make his father proud. High school was easy. Tom excelled at everything. Football team captain, honor roll, but he wasn't interested in college. He wanted the Army, wanted it more than anything. His father drove him to the recruitment office the day after graduation. Didn't say much on the drive, just kept one hand on the wheel and the other on Tom's shoulder. When they arrived, Robert finally spoke. Son, the uniform is sacred. You wear it with honor or you don't wear it at all. Tom enlisted that day. He never forgot those words. Basic training was tough, but Tom thrived. He was fast, strong, and had something most recruits didn't: focus. While other guys complained or quit, Tom pushed harder. His drill sergeant noticed. Told him he had potential for more than regular infantry. Tom applied for the Rangers. The selection process was brutal. Out of his class of 200 candidates, only 23 made it through. Tom was one of them. At 21 years old, he earned his Ranger tab and thought he'd reached the peak. He was wrong. 2 years into his Ranger career, during a deployment in Iraq, something happened that changed everything. His platoon was conducting a night raid on a suspected weapons cache. Intelligence was wrong. They walked into an ambush. Tom's team leader went down in the first seconds. So did their radio man. The platoon was pinned, taking fire from 3 sides. They had maybe 10 minutes before being overrun. Tom did something that surprised even himself. He didn't panic. His mind went quiet and clear. He saw the battlefield like a chessboard, saw the enemy positions, saw the weakness in their formation. He grabbed two other Rangers, moved through a drainage ditch under heavy fire, and flanked the enemy position. Within 4 minutes, they'd eliminated the threat and saved their platoon. Tom took shrapnel in his shoulder but kept fighting until every man was safe. His commanding officer recommended him for something else. Something most soldiers never even heard about. 6 months later, Tom found himself at a classified location, starting the most difficult selection process in the entire U.S. military. Delta Force, the unit that didn't officially exist. The operators who handled missions too sensitive for anyone else. The selection course lasted 6 months. Tom couldn't tell his family where he was or what he was doing. Katie sent him letters that never reached him. His father called the army base repeatedly, trying to find out if his son was okay. Out of 120 candidates, only 11 made it through. Tom was one of them. At 24 years old, he became a Delta Force operator. He was given a new name, Ghost, because he could infiltrate enemy territory without leaving a trace. For 3 years, Tom ran missions that would never appear in any newspaper. He operated in 7 different countries, rescued hostages, gathered intelligence on terrorist cells, eliminated high-value targets that posed threats to national security. His team became his family. Rodriguez, a sniper from Texas who could hit a target from a mile away. Jackson, a communications expert from Chicago who could hack into enemy systems in minutes. Lieutenant Nash, their team leader, who had 17 years of special operations experience and never lost a man. They trusted each other with their lives. Had to. In their world, hesitation meant death. Mistakes meant body bags. They were the best of the best, and they knew it. Then came Afghanistan. September 2022. The mission that would end everything. Tom's team was deployed to a region near the Pakistan border. Remote, mountainous, perfect terrain for enemy fighters to hide. Their orders were clear. Track and eliminate a bomb maker responsible for dozens of attacks on coalition forces. The target's name was Bashir Zadran. Intel suggested he was planning something big, something that could kill hundreds. The operation was joint, Delta Force and CIA working together. The CIA had been tracking Zadran for months. They had informants, surveillance, they knew his patterns. This was supposed to be a clean operation. Get in, eliminate the target, get out. But nothing in war ever goes according to plan. Tom's team inserted under cover of darkness, 6 operators moving through mountain passes like shadows. They reached the village where Zadran was hiding, set up overwatch positions. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Then the trap sprang, enemy fighters appeared from nowhere. Dozens of them. The informant had betrayed them. Zadran knew they were coming. He'd prepared an ambush. The firefight erupted at dawn. Tom's team was pinned down in a valley with enemy forces on the high ground. The worst possible tactical position. Nash called for air support, but the nearest helicopters were 40 minutes away. They didn't have 40 minutes. Tom was behind a low wall with Rodriguez when his radio crackled. It was Sterling, the CIA operative running the mission from a command post 2 miles away. Ghost, we have a problem. Zadran is running. He's heading for a cave system on the North Ridge. If he gets in there, we'll never find him. Tom looked at the chaos around him, bullets chewing up the dirt. Jackson was hit in the leg. Rodriguez was almost out of ammunition. They needed every gun in this fight. Negative, Tom said. We're engaged. Cannot pursue. Ghost, listen to me. Sterling's voice was urgent. This is our only shot. Zadran has intel on an attack planned for next week. A coalition base. Intelligence suggests 200+ casualties. If he escapes, we lose everything. Tom's mind raced. 200 lives. Men and women just like his teammates. Kids from small towns like Riverside who signed up to serve. Nash's voice came through. Ghost, what's your status? Tom saw Zadran in the distance. A figure in dark clothing, moving toward the mountains with 2 bodyguards. In 30 seconds, he'd reach the caves. In 2 minutes, he'd disappear forever. Ghost, you have to go. Sterling's command was clear. That's an order. Pursue the target now. Nash heard it too. For a moment, their eyes met across the battlefield. Nash gave the smallest nod. Permission. Or maybe just understanding that someone had to go. Tom made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ran, left his brothers in that firefight, grabbed his rifle and his pack and went after Zadran alone. He heard Rodriguez shouting his name, heard the gunfire intensifying behind him. But he kept running. Because orders were orders. Because 200 lives hung in the balance. Because he was Ghost, and this was what he did. He didn't know that in the next 17 minutes 3 men from his unit would die. He didn't know that Sterling's tactical errors would leave his team vulnerable. He didn't know that the story everyone would remember was simple and wrong. All he knew was that Zadran was getting away, and he had to stop him. Tom chased that target into the mountains of Afghanistan, into enemy territory, into 72 hours that would destroy his life, and into a truth that no one would be allowed to tell. Tom finally called Jennifer Park on Thursday afternoon. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop 2 towns over. He didn't want anyone from Riverside seeing them together. Jennifer was waiting when he arrived. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, a laptop bag over her shoulder. She stood and extended her hand. "Thank you for coming." Tom shook it briefly and sat down. "I'm not promising anything. I just want to hear what you think you know." Jennifer pulled out a notebook. "Fair enough. Let me start with this. I've been investigating military cover-ups for 6 years. Someone sent me an anonymous tip about your case 8 months ago. At first I ignored it. Another soldier with a complicated story. But then I started digging." She opened her notebook to a page filled with notes and dates. "The official report on your mission is heavily redacted. 70% of it is blacked out. That's unusual even for classified operations. So I asked myself, what are they hiding?" Tom said nothing. Just watched her. "I started with the basics. Your unit engaged enemy fighters on September 14th, 2022. The firefight lasted 17 minutes. 3 casualties. Staff Sergeant William Rodriguez, Corporal Michael Jackson, Specialist Dylan Hayes. You disappeared during the engagement and showed up 72 hours later at Forward Operating Base Wolverine." Hearing their names out loud hit Tom like a punch to the chest. "Rodriguez, Jackson, Hayes, good men, brothers," Jennifer continued. "But here's what doesn't add up. You were miles away from the FOB when you reappeared. You were wounded, dehydrated. According to medical records, you had injuries consistent with close-quarters combat and mountain terrain navigation. Not exactly what you'd expect from someone running away." "Where are you going with this?" Tom asked. "I went to Afghanistan." Jennifer said it casually, like she'd gone to the grocery store. "Spent 3 weeks in the region where your mission took place. Talked to locals. Paid for information. And I found something interesting." She pulled out her phone and showed Tom a photo. It was a cave entrance in a mountainside. "Village elders told me about an American soldier who came through their area 3 years ago. Alone, wounded, hunting someone. They said he moved like a ghost. That's what they called him. A ghost." She looked at Tom meaningfully. "They said this ghost tracked 2 men into these caves. There was gunfire. An explosion. When the smoke cleared, the ghost was gone, and so were the men he was hunting." Tom's jaw tightened. "Those villagers could be talking about anyone." "Could be. Except I showed them photos. 20 different soldiers. They picked you out immediately." Jennifer leaned forward. "Tom, I know you went after Bashir Zadran. I know you were ordered to pursue him while your team was still engaged. And I know you tracked him for 3 days through hostile territory." "You can't know that," Tom said quietly. "I have sources. People who were there. People who've been carrying this secret and watching you get destroyed for something that wasn't your fault." Tom stood up. "I should go. Lieutenant Gregory Nash is willing to talk." Tom froze. Nash, his team leader. The man who'd given him that small nod. The man who'd survived the firefight and never said a word in Tom's defense. "Nash is retired now," Jennifer continued. "He reached out to me 2 months ago. Said he couldn't watch this anymore. Said what happened to you was wrong." Tom sat back down slowly. "What exactly did he tell you?" Jennifer flipped through her notes. "He said your team was tracking a high-value target. The mission was run by a CIA operative named Vincent Sterling. When the firefight started, Sterling ordered you to pursue Zadran alone. Nash confirmed the order. He said you didn't want to go. You argued. But Sterling pulled rank." Tom closed his eyes. That moment came flooding back. The chaos. The impossible choice. Sterling's voice in his ear, cold and commanding. "Nash said Sterling made tactical errors that left your team exposed." Jennifer went on. "The local informant was compromised, but Sterling ignored warnings. He was obsessed with getting Zadran. When things went wrong, he needed a scapegoat. You were convenient. Why didn't Nash say this before?" Tom's voice was rough. He tried. "But Sterling has powerful friends in the intelligence community. The mission was classified at the highest levels. Nash was ordered to keep quiet. When he pushed back, he was threatened with court-martial. So he stayed silent, but it's been eating at him for 3 years. Tom rubbed his face with both hands. 3 years of silence. 3 years of being called a coward while men who knew the truth said nothing. There's more, Jennifer said. I tracked down Rodriguez's brother, Carlos Rodriguez. He's a Marine stationed in North Carolina. He received a letter from his brother 2 weeks before the mission. In it, Rodriguez talked about you, called you the best operator he'd ever worked with, said if anything happened to him, it wouldn't be because his team let him down. She pulled out a photocopy of the letter. Tom recognized Rodriguez's handwriting immediately. Seeing it made his throat tight. Carlos wants the truth out there too, Jennifer said. He's tired of hearing people trash your name when his brother died believing in you. Tom stared at the letter. Rodriguez had a daughter, little girl named Sophia. She was 5 years old when her father died. Tom had wanted to go to the funeral, wanted to tell the family what really happened, but he'd been ordered to stay away. Told his presence would cause problems. What about Zadran? Tom asked finally. What happened to him? Jennifer met his eyes. According to my sources, Bashir Zadran was eliminated on September 17, 2022. 3 days after your team was ambushed. The intelligence recovered from his location prevented a major attack on a coalition base. Estimated casualties if the attack had succeeded? Over 200 soldiers. Tom looked away. 200 lives. That's what those 72 hours had been about. That's what he'd bought with his reputation, his career, his entire life in Riverside. So why the cover-up? Tom asked. If I completed the mission, why destroy me? Because Sterling screwed up, Jennifer said bluntly. His bad intelligence got 3 men killed. If the truth came out, it would have ended his career. Maybe even led to criminal charges. So he rewrote the narrative, made you the villain, made it look like you abandoned your team instead of following his orders. And the army just went along with it? The CIA has a lot of power, and Sterling convinced people that exposing the truth would compromise national security. He buried the real report, created a false narrative, and because everything was classified, you couldn't defend yourself without violating federal law. Tom felt anger rising in his chest. 3 years. 3 years of carrying this weight while Sterling walked free, while his father couldn't look at him, while his hometown treated him like trash. Where is Sterling now? Tom's voice was cold. That's the problem, Jennifer said. He's been promoted. He's now a senior advisor in the intelligence community. Very connected. Very protected, which is why this story is dangerous. Sterling has the resources to bury it again. Or worse. Worse how? Jennifer hesitated. 2 weeks ago, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was stolen, but all my research files were photographed. My laptop was accessed, and I received an anonymous message telling me to drop this investigation. But you didn't. No. Because the truth matters. Because you deserve better. And because those 3 men who died deserve the truth, told about how they really fell. Jennifer closed her notebook. But I need your help. I need you to tell me everything. On the record, it's the only way this works. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Going public meant violating classification, meant potential legal consequences, meant painting a target on his back. But staying silent meant living the rest of his life as a coward. Meant Sterling kept winning. Meant Rodriguez, Jackson, and Hayes died for nothing. If I do this, Tom said slowly, I need something first. What? I need to talk to Nash face to face. I need to hear him say it. Jennifer nodded. I can arrange that. He's in Virginia, about 2 hours from here. Then set it up. Tom stood. And Jennifer? If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I want every fact checked. Every source verified, because when this comes out, Sterling's going to come after both of us with everything he's got. Jennifer smiled for the first time. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. They shook hands again. This time Tom's grip was firmer. He'd spent 3 years running from the truth. Maybe it was time to stand and fight. As he walked to his truck, his phone buzzed. A text from Katie. Dad asked about you again. He misses you even if he won't say it. Please don't give up on us. Tom stared at the message. He'd lost so much already. His career, his reputation, his home. But maybe, just maybe, he could get some of it back. Not by running away, but by finally telling the truth. The drive to Virginia took 3 hours. Tom insisted on going alone, but Jennifer wouldn't hear it. She rode in the passenger seat, making calls and reviewing notes while Tom drove in silence. Nash lived in a small house outside Richmond. Quiet neighborhood. Trees lining the street. The kind of place where people retired to find peace. Tom wondered if Nash had found any. They pulled up to the curb just after 2 in the afternoon. Tom sat in the truck for a moment, engine off, staring at the front door. "You okay?" Jennifer asked. "I haven't seen him since the debriefing, right after it happened." Tom's hands were still on the steering wheel. "He sat across from me in that room and didn't say a word while they buried me. He had orders. We all had orders," Tom said. "Didn't make it right." They got out of the truck. Tom's legs felt heavy walking up the driveway. Before they reached the door, it opened. Lieutenant Gregory Nash stood there. He looked older than Tom remembered. Gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes, but still had that same solid bearing. Still looked like a soldier. "Tom." Nash's voice was rough. "Lieutenant?" They stood there for a moment, 3 years of silence between them. Then Nash stepped aside. "Come in." The house was neat, military neat. Everything in its place. Photos on the walls. Nash in various uniforms throughout his career. His wife Claire smiling in several of them. She'd passed away 2 years ago, Jennifer had mentioned. Cancer. They sat in the living room. Nash offered coffee, but nobody wanted any. "I should have spoken up," Nash said immediately. "That's the first thing I need to say. I should have fought harder. Should have risked the court-martial." "What they did to you was wrong," Tom nodded slowly. Didn't trust himself to speak yet. Nash leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've gone over that day 1,000 times. The mission was bad from the start. Sterling rushed the timeline. The intelligence was thin. I told him we needed more recon, but he wouldn't listen. Said we had a narrow window." "What happened after I left?" Tom asked. Nash was quiet for a moment. "We held the position for another 8 minutes. Jackson took a round to the leg. Hayes was hit in the shoulder. Rodriguez and I were laying down covering fire, but we were pinned. I called for emergency extraction." He paused, and Tom could see the weight of that day in his eyes. Sterling kept screaming through the comms, asking about you, asking if you'd reached Zadran. I told him we were taking casualties and needed immediate support. He said air support was coming, but it was taking too long. Nash stood up and walked to the window. Couldn't sit still with the memory. Hayes went down trying to reach better cover. Headshot, gone instantly. Rodriguez tried to get to him. That's when he was hit, chest and abdomen. I got to him, pulled him back. But it was bad, Tom, really bad. Tom felt his chest tighten. Rodriguez had a daughter, Sophia. She'd be 8 now. He knew he wasn't making it. Nash continued, his voice thick. Last thing he said to me was, "Tell Ghost it wasn't his fault." Then he was gone. Jackson bled out before the helicopters arrived. The room was silent except for the ticking of a clock on the wall. When I got back to base, Sterling was waiting. Pulled me into a room. Just him and 2 other CIA guys I'd never seen before. He told me how the report would read. Told me you'd abandoned your position. Deserted under fire. "And you didn't fight it," Tom said. "I tried." Nash turned from the window and Tom could see the anger there. "I told them you followed orders. That Sterling commanded you to pursue the target. They said there was no record of that order. Said the mission log showed you went rogue. They erased it. They erased everything that didn't fit their story. When I pushed back, they threatened to charge me with insubordination. Said I'd lose my pension. Face court-martial. But that's not why I stayed quiet." Nash met Tom's eyes. "They said if I talked, they'd classify the entire mission as a failure. Said Rodriguez, Jackson, and Hayes would be listed as casualties of command negligence. My negligence. Said I'd be responsible for their deaths." Tom felt something shift inside him. Nash had been trapped too. Different cage, same prison. "So I kept my mouth shut," Nash said bitterly. "Told myself I was protecting the mission. Protecting the families. But really I was just protecting myself. And I let you burn for it." Jennifer had been quiet this whole time, but now she spoke up. "Did you keep any records? Anything that proves Sterling gave that order?" Nash walked to a desk in the corner and pulled out a folder. "After Claire died, I started putting this together. Figured if something happened to me, someone should know the truth." He handed the folder to Jennifer. Inside were documents. Printed emails. Mission logs that shouldn't exist outside classified systems. "How did you get these?" Jennifer asked. "I still have friends in the community. People who were disgusted by what happened. They helped me piece it together." Nash looked at Tom. "Sterling falsified the after-action report, the original version. the one that was submitted immediately after the mission, listed you as following tactical orders. That version was buried within 48 hours. The revised report removed any mention of Sterling's command. Tom took the folder and flipped through it, seeing it in black and white, the proof that he'd been telling the truth even if only to himself. There's more, Nash said. I tracked down 2 other operators who worked with Sterling on different missions. Both had similar stories. Operations that went wrong, reports that got rewritten, soldiers who took the fall while Sterling walked away clean. He's done this before, Jennifer said, taking notes rapidly. He's built a career on it, throwing people under the bus to cover his mistakes. Nash sat back down, looking exhausted. The attack you prevented, Tom. The intelligence you recovered from Zadrin's compound. It saved over 200 lives. There was a truck bomb planned for forward operating base Python. Massive explosive load. If it had hit during shift change like they planned, the casualties would have been catastrophic. Tom had known the mission was important. But hearing the specific details, the specific base, Python was home to 300 soldiers, young men and women just trying to serve. Sterling got a commendation for that intelligence, Nash said with disgust. Got promoted. Meanwhile, you got nothing but shame. Tom stood up and walked to the photos on Nash's wall. One showed their team. Before the mission, Rodriguez grinning at the camera, Jackson making a stupid face, Hayes with his arm around Tom's shoulder. They looked so young, so sure of themselves. I want to do the right thing now, Nash said quietly. I'll testify. Go on record. Whatever you need. I can't change what happened, but I can help fix it. Tom turned around. Sterling will come after you, hard. Let him. I'm 61 years old. Already retired. Lost my wife. What else can he take from me? Nash's jaw was set. Besides, I owe this to Rodriguez, Jackson, and Hayes. They died doing their jobs. They deserve the truth. Jennifer closed her notebook. I'm going to publish this week. The story's ready. I have Nash's testimony. I have the documents. I have eyewitnesses from Afghanistan. Once it's out there, it's going to explode. Sterling won't just sit back and take it, Tom said. No, he won't. Which is why I've already sent copies of everything to 3 other journalists. If something happens to me, they'll publish. Sterling can't stop all of us. Tom looked at both of them. A retired lieutenant with nothing left to lose. A journalist willing to risk everything for the truth. And himself. The ghost who'd been blamed for everything. When this comes out, my life is going to change again, Tom said. Yes, Jennifer agreed. But this time you'll be telling your own story. Tom thought about Riverside. About his father who couldn't look at him. About the diner where veterans called him a coward. About Katie, the only one who never doubted him. Do it, Tom said. Publish everything. Nash stood and extended his hand. I'm sorry, Tom, for all of it. You deserved better from me. From all of us. Tom shook his hand. 3 years of anger. 3 years of betrayal. But holding on to it wouldn't bring Rodriguez, Jackson, or Hayes back. Wouldn't change what happened. All he could do now was make sure the truth finally came out. One more thing, Nash said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small metal object. A challenge coin. The Delta Force insignia. This was Rodriguez's. His brother Carlos sent it to me after the funeral. Asked me to give it to you when the time was right. Tom took the coin. Felt the weight of it in his palm. Rodriguez had carried this on every mission. It was his good luck charm. He believed in you, Nash said. Until the very end. We all did. Tom closed his fist around the coin. He'd spent 3 years running from this story. From the pain. From the guilt. But Rodriguez, Jackson, and Hayes hadn't run. They'd stood their ground and paid the ultimate price. The least Tom could do was stand with them now. Even if it meant facing everything he'd been hiding from, even if it meant war with Sterling and everyone protecting him, the truth was worth fighting for, and Tom Brennan was done running. Jennifer's article went live on a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. By noon, it had been shared over 50,000 times. By evening, every major news network in the country was covering it. Tom watched it unfold from Katie's apartment. She'd insisted he stay with her. Said she didn't want him alone when the story broke. Smart move. His phone hadn't stopped ringing since the article posted. The headline was simple and devastating. Decorated Delta Force operator scapegoated to cover CIA mistakes. 3 soldiers died while the truth was buried. Jennifer had done her job well. The article laid out everything. The mission, the ambush, Sterling's order for Tom to pursue Zadran alone, the falsified reports, Nash's testimony, the intelligence from Afghanistan, the 200 lives saved. Every detail was sourced, verified, documented. It's everywhere, Katie said, scrolling through her phone. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, everyone's running with it. Tom couldn't stop staring at the photo Jennifer had used, his official Delta Force portrait. Young face, steady eyes, the man he used to be before everything fell apart. His phone rang again. Another unknown number. He'd stopped answering hours ago. But this one he recognized. Area code from Riverside he picked up. Hello? Tom. His father's voice, rough, shaking. I just read the article. All of it. Tom's throat went tight. Dad, I need to see you. Today. Now. Can you come home? Home. Tom hadn't thought of Riverside as home in 3 years. Yeah, Tom said. I can come home. The drive back to Riverside felt different this time. Katie insisted on coming with him. They didn't talk much. Just drove while the news played on the radio. Every station was covering the story. Military analysts weighing in, former operators calling for investigations, journalists digging into Sterling's career. By the time they reached Riverside, it was late afternoon. Tom pulled up to his childhood home, the house where he'd grown up, where he'd dreamed of being a soldier like his father. Robert Brennan was waiting on the front porch. He stood when Tom got out of the truck. For a moment, they just looked at each other. 3 years of silence. 3 years of shame. 3 years of a father not knowing how to talk to his son. Then Robert walked down the steps and pulled Tom into a hug. The kind of hug that said everything words couldn't. Tom felt something break inside him. Something that had been holding together for too long. I'm sorry, Robert said, his voice cracking. God, Tom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. Should have known you'd never do what they said. You didn't know, Tom managed. I should have. I'm your father. I should have known. Robert pulled back, hands still on Tom's shoulders. His eyes were red. You did your job. You did what they ordered, and I treated you like you were nothing. Katie was crying on the porch steps. Robert pulled her in too. The three of them standing there in the driveway, while the afternoon sun painted everything gold. Inside, they sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd had Sunday dinners, where Tom had told his father he wanted to enlist, where everything good in his life had started. The whole town's talking, Robert said. Been talking all day. Everyone who said terrible things about you is real quiet now. Frank Miller called me. You remember Frank from the diner? Tom nodded. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry, said he's ashamed of how he treated you. A lot of people are saying the same thing. They don't owe me anything, Tom said. Yes, they do. We all do. Robert's jaw was set. This Sterling. He's going to pay for what he did to you, to those men who died. The article said there's an investigation starting. Tom had seen that too. The Department of Defense had announced a formal review of the mission. Congress was calling for hearings. Sterling had been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. It's not going to bring them back, Tom said quietly. Rodriguez, Jackson, Hayes, they're still gone. But their families will know the truth now, Robert said. That matters. That matters a lot. There was a knock at the door. Robert went to answer it. When he came back, Nash was with him. Hope it's okay I came by, Nash said. I was in the area. Wanted to check on you. Tom stood and shook his hand. More than okay. They sat together, the four of them, while the evening settled in. Nash told stories about the team, about Rodriguez's terrible jokes, about Jackson's obsession with country music, about Hayes and his letters to his girlfriend back home. They laughed and cried and remembered men who deserved to be remembered. The doorbell rang again. This time it was neighbors, the Pattersons from across the street. They brought a casserole and apologies. Then came the Washingtons. Then old Mr. Hendricks from the diner, hat in his hand, saying he was wrong and he was sorry. By 8 o'clock, the house was full. People Tom had grown up with. People who'd turned their backs on him. All of them coming to say what they should have said 3 years ago. Tom stood in the corner, watching it all, feeling overwhelmed. Katie squeezed his hand. You okay? She asked. I don't know, Tom admitted. Part of me wants to be angry. They all believed the worst about me, didn't give me a chance to explain. But you couldn't explain. No, I couldn't. Tom looked around the room, and maybe that's the hardest part, understanding why they believed it. I would have too, probably, if I didn't know the truth. The crowd eventually thinned. By 10, it was just family again. Robert insisted Tom and Katie stay the night. Tom's old room was exactly how he'd left it. High school football trophies, Ranger tab displayed on the wall. A life frozen in time. He lay in his childhood bed that night, staring at the ceiling. His phone was still blowing up. Reporters wanted interviews. Veterans organizations were reaching out. Someone from the Pentagon had left 3 messages. But there was one message Tom had been waiting for.
It came just after midnight. Carlos Rodriguez.
The Marine. The brother, Tom. Read the article. Can't stop crying, man. My brother always said you were the best. He was right. Thank you for telling the truth. Thank you for finishing the mission. Sophia's old enough now to understand what her daddy did. What you did. You gave me the gift of being able to tell her the truth. That means everything. Semper Fi, brother. Tom read it 3 times. Then he looked at the challenge coin on his nightstand. Rodriguez's coin, the one Nash had given him. The next morning, Tom drove to the cemetery just outside town. He'd never been able to visit before. Couldn't face it. But now he could. He found the memorial marker. Riverside honored its fallen soldiers with a stone monument. Rodriguez's name was there. Jackson's, Hayes's. Tom knelt in front of it and placed the challenge coin at the base. I'm sorry it took so long, he said quietly. I'm sorry you had to die while I kept running. But I'm done running now. The truth's out there. Everyone knows what you did, what we all did. The morning was quiet, just birds and wind in the trees, and Sterling's going down. Nash is testifying. They can't bury it anymore. Tom touched the stone. You guys did your jobs. Every second of it. And now everyone knows. He stood there for a long time, saying goodbye, saying thank you, saying all the things he'd needed to say for 3 years. When he finally left, he felt lighter. The weight wasn't completely gone. Probably never would be. But it was bearable now. 2 weeks later, Tom sat in a congressional hearing room in Washington, D.C. Cameras everywhere. Senators asking questions. Sterling across the room. His expensive lawyers surrounding him, looking smaller than Tom remembered. Nash testified for 2 hours. Laid out everything. The orders. The cover-up. The pattern of behavior. By the time he finished, Sterling's career was over. The investigation would continue for months, but the outcome was clear. Tom gave his own testimony. Told the truth about those 72 hours in the mountains. About tracking Zadran. About the intelligence that saved 200 lives. About the brothers he'd left behind. When it was over, he walked out of the building into bright sunlight. Jennifer was waiting along with Katie and his father. Carlos Rodriguez was there too. They'd met for the first time the day before. Hugged like brothers, because that's what they were now. How do you feel? Jennifer asked. Tom thought about it. Free, he said finally. For the first time in 3 years, I feel free. They didn't make him a hero. Tom didn't want that anyway. But they cleared his name, restored his honor, made sure Rodriguez, Jackson, and Hayes were remembered the right way. 6 months later, Tom stood at a private ceremony. The Army was awarding him the Distinguished Service Cross. His Delta Force brothers filled the room. Men he'd served with. Men who'd known the truth all along and carried it in silence. His father pinned the medal on his chest. Tears running down his face, Tom looked at the men around him. The ones still serving. The ones who'd retired. The ones who understood what it meant to carry secrets. To make impossible choices. To be a ghost when the mission required it. He thought about Rodriguez telling Nash to tell Ghost it wasn't his fault. About Jackson fighting to the end. About Hayes writing letters to his girlfriend. About 3 men who'd done their duty and deserved to be remembered. The legend was never about him. It was about all of them. The ones who served in silence. The ones who made sacrifices nobody would ever fully understand. The ones who became ghosts so others could live. Tom Brennan had been called a coward. But he'd always been a hero. It just took the world a while to catch up.